Dr. Thomas König.
Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to our third Innovation Day, also from my side, wherever you are listening or participating. And thank you, Christopher, for the friendly introduction. Look, can you imagine a life without digitization? Definitely not. For me, this device is really a perfect example how digitization could change the way of our life much more radically and faster than we have ever imagined. To kick off the day, I want to share some reflections about digitization with you and introduce you into the digital energy world of E.ON. Recently, a colleague of Google at Green Tech festivals described the energy transition as the largest digital project of all times. And I share this view. I strongly believe that digitization will change the way we do our business, like smartphones revolutionized not only communications, but our whole daily life. So let's find out why digitization is so important for us and how a digital energy world could look like. So, doesn't work. Next one, please. So here we are. We are still at the very beginning of a fundamentally transition of the whole energy world. We are switching off central, big, controllable power stations and replace them by hundreds and thousands of volatile renewables. And this makes life for us as a network operator and as an energy provider much more complicated than in the past. There are two main issues that I would like to explain to you. First of all, complexity, and the second one is uncertainty. Originally, our networks has been constructed for the maximum load that our customers needed from us. And we had big power stations, we had much reserve capacity in our system, and it was comparatively easy to distribute the energy from the big power stations, cascading down from high voltage level to midterm voltage, where our industrial customers sit, down to the low voltage levels to our household customers. And in this world, we need no transparency about the status of our grids. We had almost no bottlenecks in the system, so it was relatively easy. But this world has completely changed. Now we have bottlenecks in the systems. We have millions now, in Germany alone, 2 million renewables feeding in their energy into the system. We have changing bottlenecks on the different voltage levels, and the power is distributed up and down and right and left in the system. And to control the stability of the networks, therefore, we need much more transparency. We are equipping our networks with sensors, with remote control possibilities, and are building our own communication network. This is secure and and blackfall proof. Oh, sorry, I missed that. So the second thing is, we have not only much more participants in the networks, the uncertainty in the networks is increasing day by day. Why that? We are shutting down controllable power stations and increasing the numbers of volatile, weather-dependent in-feed from our renewable facilities. And on the same side, demand is getting more uncertain. In the past, we worked with so-called standard load profiles. Now, each and every day, new electricity appliances and applications are connected to our grids, like storage, e-vehicles, fuel cells, micro-CHP, just to name a few. And we have still not that much experience how demand is developing in this new world. I want to show you just a very easy numerical example about the complexity in our system. In a fully meshed network with only 5 participants, there are 10 possible connections between these 5 participants. If you have 1,000 participants, this number already rises to 500,000. And you can imagine if you have millions of customers and millions of renewables in the system, how this complexity increases. Such a system can not longer controlled by human experience and intuition, but only with digital support. And this is why E.ON launched digitization in both segments, energy networks and customer solutions, at a very early stage. Before I show you some very concrete examples, I want to explain what I mean by digitization in very simple words. For me, digitization is turning the real world into a digital one and capturing the value of the data that we are collecting from our environment, from our grid control centers, from our customers and from our assets, and find new solutions, especially for our customers. Digital twins enable us to perform simulations of the future that seemed unthinkable a few years ago. We can now simulate different future scenarios and can predict for different time horizons where bottlenecks in our system could occur. And we can help our customers to save energy by simulating their behavior without losing comfort or quality of life. On the picture, you see one of our substations. On the left-hand side, the real world, and on the other side, the digital one. And just to give you one example, what we can do with these 3D models. We perform safety instructions for our own fitters and for our service companies with these 3D models, so they can get familiar with a situation, with a local situation in a safety environment before they travel to the substation. And I myself took part in a digital fire drill some months ago, and believe me, I really started sweating. So real was the simulation. So the possibilities and the opportunities to use data and to analyze data are immense and run throughout our whole value chain, starting from automated grid planning, drone-based inspection of overhead lines, to chatbots in our customer service operations. So now let's have a look how a digitized and highly connected energy system could look like. Imagine we could offer our customers a flat rate for their whole energy consumption at prices that are lower than their current bill. And at the end of the year, we see no negative surprises, no additional payments. But in contrast, it could be that we pay money back for the flexibility, the demand flexibility they offer to us to keep our network stable. Too good to be true? No, it already works. And if you want to learn more about that, just Google Timo Leukefeld, a solar pioneer of Germany with whom we are working closely together. Our customers are really at the center of the new energy world. And digitalization is not only helping us to manage their own assets in their homes, like you see on the left-hand side. Digitalization enables us to create local energy communities. We provide platforms that empower customers to use the green energy that is produced locally, and we enable them to take part in real-time demand response management on real-time prices. Imagine we could avoid bottlenecks in the networks before they occur. Weather forecasts are becoming more and more important for us because they determine the production of the next day or the next week. By comparing weather data and production data, our forecasting models are getting better day and day. We're using self-learning algorithms to get a better and deeper understanding of the dependencies between weather and production. And at the same time, smart meters allow us to predict electricity consumption with a much greater accuracy than before. And combining them, a better predictability on the generation side and on the demand side allows us to keep the system stable at every time and using even small-scale flexibility on both sides. Imagine that our assets tell us themselves when they need service. Each and every month, we are installing more than 3,000 sensors to collect real-time data from our networks. Already today, more than 35,000 sensors are in our networks. And with this real-time data, we can analyze network load and network failures, and by machine learning algorithms, we predict network failures with a much higher accuracy than any human being could do. These algorithms learn continuously, automatically, and independently. This picture shows you a robot inspecting one of our substations. By using robots, drones, and artificial intelligence, we can automatically detect potential faults and remotely implement maintenance. By this, we achieve lower costs and lower downtimes in the best interest of our customers. And imagine a world where we can supply our customers completely with green energy. We developed a so-called energy monitor that shows you on a dashboard in real time how much energy a community is consuming and how the energy is produced. By this, cities can not only give transparency to their residents, they are able to calculate their carbon footprint and take specific measures to reduce CO2 emissions and later on track them with our tool. Energy Networks is providing the smart infrastructure and the information, and Carsten Wildberger, whom you met yesterday, and his team, is offering a wide range of possibilities to reduce CO2 emissions from energy efficiency consulting, highly efficient cogeneration fueled by biogas, low energy heating networks, to PV and battery, just to name a few. But not only our customers, also the environment benefits from digitization. Here you see an overhead line. And for safety reasons, overhead lines must be kept clear of trees and bushes at all times. The conventional practice of vegetation management and tree trimming often leaves monotonous areas behind, and that's of course not good for animals and plants. E.ON is implementing an ecological digital line maintenance by using drones and satellite picture recognitions. And by doing so, we can reduce tree trimming and vegetation management to an absolute minimum, and thereby protecting the environment and saving money for our customers. So, and here is one of my favorite examples, a very new one. In a moment, you will see a only 5 or 6 seconds video about bird protection. Overhead lines can be dangerous for birds, and this is why we are equipping our overhead lines with bird protectors. Normally, the power has to be switched off. Our fitters walk out with a heavy pallet truck and attach the bird protectors to the lines. This is, of course, not without risk for employees or the service companies that we employ. And now look what is possible with digital control technology. You will see a drone appearing out of the blue and a matter of seconds equipping the lines with a bird protection. This is not only good for the animals, but also increases the safety of our employees. And of course, at much lower cost, and again, this is in the best interest for our customers. Isn't that great? So let me conclude. None of us can solve the task in an increasingly complex world alone. For decades, E.ON wanted to solve the energy challenges on our own. We've been saying goodbye to this approach many years ago. All the digital solutions that I've presented before had been developed with partners, with universities, with startups, or big companies like IBM, SAP, or Microsoft. Again, no one of us can solve the challenges of the energy transition alone. We need strong partnership across boundaries. And I personally really enjoy this cooperative approach, working together with partners, with new ideas, and with an inspiring different mindset makes more fun and opens new horizons for all of us. And this is why I like the new E.ON brand campaign so much. It's all about the we. Together we can really make a difference, and together the we has no limits. I'm looking forward to an exciting day with you, meeting interesting people, and I wish you all fruitful discussions and new impulses from digitization in energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Thomas König, for this input and so many insights. And we have already a lot of questions coming up. During the last 2 days, I had the chance to bombard our COOs here on stage with questions from our audience. I want to start with this one because you just mentioned it. Capturing data to develop new solutions. Can you give us an example of how this is already happening, or one of the projects that you particularly like right now that you're seeing around capturing data to use it for good?
Yeah, I gave you an example of predictive maintenance. And this is where we really collect real-time data, load data in our networks, and at the same time collecting data of failures. And by combining them and analyzing them, we are able to predict failures in the future. And if you know that, you can do some maintenance work before a failure even occurs. So this is one of the great examples in our networks business.
Yeah, maybe relating to that, because there is a question about future scenarios and whether their calculations are exact. So there is a lot of prediction going on. That's what you just described in maintenance. How certain are we that we are having real numbers, so real data?
Of course, no one of us has the crystal ball. And therefore, we are working with different scenarios. And we are testing them, how robust our solutions are. So, but of course, we can't predict the future exactly. But our simulations give us a better feeling if we are on the right way and when and how we have to adjust.
Mm-hmm. So the scenarios give you the chance to respond to different kinds of possible futures.
Exactly.
Yes. There's a question maybe about, I don't know if this is related, but what about AI and digital support without limits? The argument is we need to talk about the implications of AI and digital support early. Can you comment on that?
Of course, the artificial intelligence has limits. I can tell you many of our employees and of our executives immediately feel a little bit fear about these new technologies. Unspoken, they think of, hey, what is happening to me now? Is my job still safe? Do I have to work even harder now? Mm-hmm. And am I able really to understand the new technology and operate them in the right way? So we have to be really careful not to lose our people. Because for me, all the stuff that I presented is only a tool to make life for our customers and for employees easier. And therefore, we have to really be cautious doing the right things at the right time. Not losing our customers and not losing our employees.
What would you tell employees right now to not be afraid of what's coming and how to prepare maybe for this future?
Yeah. What we do, first of all, we took really their concerns seriously. And we involve, when we work on a new idea, on a new application, we involve our employees and our customers from the very beginning. And let them play a little bit, so that they get familiar with a new tool, with a new system. And we consider their ideas and their proposals. And for example, we ask them how the interface should look like, that they could really work easily with the new tools like here the smartphone or the tablet. And if you involve people from the very beginning, that makes life much easier. And of course, we are looking for so-called power users that are really enthusiastic about the new applications. And if they tell about that, other colleagues, then of course it would be great if we could create an effect like I want to have it too.
Uh-huh. Almost like an ambassador for
really.
digital.
Yeah, that's a good description.
Okay, there's a question about digital twins because you mentioned them in your talk.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on the importance of digital twins? Do you have maybe other examples where they play a role?
Yeah, I showed you a substation just as one example. But at the moment, we are really transforming the complete networks in a digital twin. And here we can really test which capacity need at what time, in which area, for example. Again, based on different scenarios, and this makes grid planning much more easy. Another example, I told you that only in Germany we have more than 800,000 renewables in our networks. In each and every one of them is asking us if it would be possible to be connected to the grid. So, and having these models in place, we can now easily and automatically give them within seconds an answer, yes, it's possible, or no, it's not possible yet, but in 3 months' time or in a year, depending on the situation in our networks.
Mm-hmm. So maybe for that to be possible, to be everybody being connected and maybe become a prosumer, so a customer, a consumer that actually provides to the network. There's a question about the FTTH expansion. So to bring super fast high-speed internet to certain areas. How will E.ON be involved in this?
First of all, I have to say, we have, at the moment, we have 25,000 kilometers in Germany with our own fiber networks.
Mm-hmm.
And we use these networks for our own communication within the system. And we use this backbone now for offering our customers broadband as well. So this is one part in our portfolio where we want to grow over the next years, year by year, and we are spending more than 100 million each year in expanding the networks and connecting our customers to the fiber networks.
Mm-hmm. So it's almost the more digital you become, the more you enter the space of digital companies like Google. What happens if a company like Google decides to become more like you and take over some of that part? Do you see that as a threat, or, as you mentioned in your speech, that might be an opportunity for a partnership?
No, I don't see Google as a threat. I think we can learn a lot from Google. Their platform technology, their knowledge about the customers, the way they are really exploring the power and the value of data. So this inspires me. But and we try really to make the best of both worlds, learning from them and applying their thinking, their knowledge on our business. I think it's not that easy to enter in our business because assets really, and owning the assets plays a major role, because you need a physical link between generation and consumption with our customers. You can't transport the electrons via Bluetooth, for example. And I think there are not so many that have such a deep knowledge of networks like we have in Europe and the world.
Right, so only having the digital twin is not enough. You actually need to build
Definitely not. You
right.
always test the digital conclusions in reality again.
Here's a question about the examples that you have shown. Is there, in the space of what is possible now, is there anything that's on the road and ready for mass rollout?
Yeah, we have many things, of course, in the pipeline. For me, the most important things, and I mentioned that before, is really capturing every single small-scale flexibility that we have in our networks, aggregating the small-scale flexibility to bigger items, and try to simulate, again, a virtual power plant that is as controllable as a fossil-fueled power plant today. So this is one thing that we are working on, and hopefully we can roll that out and scale it up in the next 12 or 18 months to come.
Right. Here's another question that's more detailed. Maybe DSR at appliance level can be achieved with remote actuation. Do you have any plans to deploy? That's the last question on the screen.
DSA is help me with the abbreviation. Demand-side response. This is what I actually gave as an example at the very beginning. We're also working with DSR, especially in local communities, where we test really real life in smaller projects how we can use the demand flexibility to keep the grid stable.
A more general question, the first one, how would you connect digitalization efforts with the sustainability goals? I mean, you mentioned some of your efforts, and you said this is at least part of the goal.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I can tell you, and this is, I think no one knows that really. For me, the most innovative digital idea was to make really the maximum use of the existing infrastructure. As I told you at the beginning, for many years, our network, we were more or less blind. We didn't need the transparency to steer the grids. Now we put the light on in our networks and exactly knows what's happening. And by that, we we increased the utilization of our grids tremendously. Without that steering, it hadn't been possible at all to connect more than 800,000 renewables to the grid, and still without any failures in the system. So this was for me, was the greatest example in energy networks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, now questions are jumping. How do you see digitalization's role in new consumer services? So this is maybe, yeah, because you actually said to capture data to develop new solutions. Maybe this is related. What's the role of digital tools now being available for new consumer services?
So yesterday, for example, Carsten told us a little bit about smart homes.
Right.
So this is, for me, for example, one application where we can really make use of digitization. Mm-hmm. So analyzing the behavior of a family in the house when they wake up, what temperature do they need, when do they need light, heating, and so on. This is what we try to explore now, and based on that, make proposals really how they can save energy without any loss in comfort or quality of life. If you know that, and if you can steer the different devices, you can save energy, I would say, by at least 10 to 20%. These are the numbers that we experience in our pilot project, that an average household can save if you really steer the home appliances in the right way.
Would you say that these tools that you're already using and that you're planning to use, are they visible enough to the consumer? Do they know enough yet? Or is that part of the job to actually create the awareness around that? Because you showed a dashboard. Yeah. Is that something you're working on?
Yeah, a fair question. I think we are at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. For now, all these new applications are more or less for the techies. I don't think that really all of our customers already know what's possible today. And this is our job, of course, to make them aware what's possible now, mm-hmm. and how these new applications can really make their life easier and more comfortable.
Maybe the second question, if I understand it correctly, does European regulation in these different countries allow proactive investments in the grids, even despite robust simulations, if I get this right?
Yeah. So all in all, I think we have adequate regulations in the different countries in Europe where we are operating. Of course, if I look 10 years or 20 years ahead, we need adjustments in the regulatory frameworks, because most of these regulatory frameworks have been created in a time where the net was more or less stable, mm-hmm. without any dynamic development. And now, and they're still mainly incentivizing the old stuff. So investing in heavy metal, I would say. Investing in digitization and in software, that is not on the screen on the regulators. Mm-hmm. And therefore, we have to modernize and to further develop our regulatory regimes in this respect.
And I think this is something we will definitely rely on partnerships too, to create that. Not all the knowledge has to come from within when it comes to these new tools, I suspect.
This was my key message at the end, really. The whole world is getting so complex and so difficult, I would say, that you can't solve all the problems on your own. And again, for me, I learned so many things in the discussions with other companies. And combining their ideas with our ideas, this is where innovation happens. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I really love this cooperative approach.
Happens at the edge.
Yeah,
always, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Here's a comment. Great speech. And now the question, would you expect that energy networks will run fully autonomously in the next 10 years?
I wouldn't say fully autonomously, but my vision is really, and maybe this is, maybe I'm too visionary in this respect, but in 10 years' time, I would say no unplanned outages should occur. Only planned interruptions, but planned because of predictive maintenance, for example. In 10 years' time, we know a failure before it happens, and therefore, we can send our fitters to the place, get the things right, without turning the power off. In a completely meshed network, we will always find ways to keep the power up and running, and this is my vision. No unplanned outages, and a self-healing networks with only a few really interferences by human beings.
Very interesting. We had a lot of IoT discussions yesterday. Here's a question. Do you see an opportunity for IoT startups, also partners possibly, to digitalize our substations, the local network stations?
Yeah, of course. And as the example showed you before, some very great ideas. For example, using the satellite data and recognition patterns there. This was developed by a young startup in Germany. And what we're doing in the future, and we are just at the beginning of that, we opened a sandbox, in my words, and invite startups really to test their idea in real life. Of course, we have to simulate, but we have defined a certain network area in Brandenburg where they can really experiment with their ideas in real life. And hopefully, this brings us, again, additional new ideas to getting even better.
Right, so a lot of exchanges happening already there.
Yeah.
Maybe my final question is, you personally, you at home, how digital are you? I mean, how smart is your home really? Because you keep preaching, but what are you doing at home?
Okay, good question. If you would ask my 20-year-old son, I think he would answer, hey, my father is a digital Neanderthal. but without joking, of course, I personally use digital applications like Apple Music. And my house, or our house, is, I would say, with home automation. If I want to control now, lights, for example, heating, or safety cameras, I could do that immediately now with my smartphone. And I'm very proud to be one of the first ones that have installed a smart meter in the cellar.
There you go.
So I would say, yes, I'm on the road.
Very good. Thank you so much for your insight, Dr. Thomas König, everybody. This was great having you. Thanks so much for taking the time and answering all the questions. Thank you for submitting so many questions. I know we didn't get to all of them, but please keep them coming. We will discuss and take them all in. We'll be back at 12 p.m. right here from the stage. Thanks so much.